I want to make it clear that when we're analyzing this stuff, we're deconstructing the narrative, the mainstream media in general. So what is useless is hate tweeting about, you heartless asshole, you don't care about my mother's sister is there. It's like, I got it. There's lots of humanitarian suffering going on. We also bombed Somalia yesterday or 2 days ago.
Yeah, there's some Somalia bombing going on. It's not covered at all.
No, of course not. And I think that also creates human suffering. So I'm going to do one more short version of the suffering that is taking place. This is also from ABC.
Good Thursday morning, everyone. We begin with major developments from the war in Ukraine. More American weapons are now arriving.
The Russian military appears to be stepping up its assault on several cities, taking control of a key port city while targeting more civilians.
It comes amid disturbing reports from Moscow that even young children protesting the war are now being arrested, held behind bars as the Kremlin cracks down on dissent. Our James Longman in Moscow reports that protesters face up to 8 years in prison and children could face up to 3 years behind bars.
Meanwhile, we heard again overnight from Ukraine's president insisting Russians will not have one quiet moment as they advance on the capital.
I love bringing in the kids. Putin's throwing kids in jail, everybody. So these weapons, as I think you and I agree, is a very bad idea. You brought up on the last show what the topic of this very video shot by an American vlogger in Kiev, and he calls it right away. What's going on with these weapons that were handed out?
So it's about 9 a.m. on Monday, February 28th, 2022. As you can see, that's the VIP club of the Premier Palace Hotel. I'm walking down to Krashatik, and I'm going to the supermarket to get some food. They've announced that it's okay to go to supermarkets and pharmacies. The problem that we're having is that because of the weapons that the Zelensky regime handed out willy-nilly in the last few days, a lot of criminals have these military-grade weapons, quite frankly. And so there's been robberies, there's been looting, there's been rapes, there's been all kinds of havoc because of these criminals. And it's known for a fact that these a lot of the shooting that went on last night in Kiev had nothing to do with the Russians. The Russians were 10 kilometers or more away from these shootings, so it was clearly probably gang-related, gang settling scores, and shooting one another. And that's something that the Western media is not talking about, of how the Zelensky regime, by handing out weapons, has basically given weapons to all the criminal elements in the city. And the criminal elements in the city are, first of all, figuring out their dominance hierarchy and this anarchy that the government has created. And soon enough, once that's settled, they'll start targeting the civilians.
Yay! And you called it, man.
It was a friend of my son's who's lived in Ukraine and is still contacts there, and he told us that a week ago. I mean, this is not news to us, this story.
I was delighted with the resurrection of the term willy-nilly. I thought that was quite nice to hear.
Willy-nilly, I like it.
We have not heard of willy-nilly in a while.
Willy-nilly.
Yes. Willy-nilly needs to be.
Title.
I need to know the etymology of willy-nilly. Where did that come from? So the Fox, as we know, is all in on the war portion, and they interviewed the iconic woman, the mom, I would say Ukrainian mama bear, who is standing there with what looks like an AK-47 in her window, ready to defend her country against evil Putin. I'm not saying that she's sincere or not. She looks very sincere, but what she said raises questions.
For the rest of us that aren't Ukrainians, I think the world, quite frankly, Kira, is surprised by the will of the Ukrainian people to stand up and fight. Are you?
Well, I'm not surprised. We have been fighting Putin for the last 8 years, and we had 3 revolutions in our country when we did not agree with what was going on with the direction of where we're moving in. But right now, it's a critical time because we know that we not only fight for Ukraine, we fight for this new world order for the democratic countries. We knew that we are the shield for the Europe.
We fight for this new world order of the democratic countries. We are the shield for the Europe. So who are they really fighting for?
And where does she get? Well, more importantly, where does she? And she speaks English.
Yes.
But where does she get that dialogue?
What do you mean the dialogue?
Where does she get the thought? Where does some babushka in the middle of nowhere, Ukraine, standing there with an AK-47 or whatever?
Just so you know, she was a hot babushka. She was well cast. She got it from the producer, from the script. What are you talking about? Hello. Clearly.
Nobody's going to, she's not going to, New World Order are the people in Ukraine thinking New World Order and they all want to be part of the one world government? Is that the message that they're supposed to be conveying?
That's the message from Fox. Yeah, it's, what I love about this situation.
Fox is bad.
Yeah, what I love about the situation, everybody's lying. Everybody is lying. You have no clear idea of any of these facts. It's like the fog of war has just been sprayed with internet goo. There's no way to know what's true. So all we can do is deconstruct what they're saying. And these are all 30 seconds or shorter. There's 4. It's kind of a rule that we don't do this on the show, but I do have some Mitt Romney clips.
Oh!
Ladies and gentlemen, what you just heard there, that was sincere. That is not an act. He was on the CBS Evening News. Let's find out what the CIA broadcast systems had for us.
Is there anything that the U.S. can do to stop Vladimir Putin?
Well, Vladimir Putin has put himself on a course where the people who will stop him are the people of Ukraine. We want to help them with additional armament, with food and supplies. That is getting through at this stage. But the people of the world have also come together and insisted that their governments continue to increase the sanctions on Russia, and that will continue.
Okay. Now, of course, we need to talk about the nuclear stuff.
Are you concerned about a scenario where this could escalate to a nuclear attack?
Well, people are always concerned, and I'm among them, for what kinds of things Vladimir Putin might do, whether he might use tactical nuclear weapons at some point if he were in a corner with his conventional weaponry. I think it's extremely unlikely that he would move in that direction in the current conflict. But I think we always have to recognize that Vladimir Putin has well over 1,000 nuclear weapons aimed at the United States of America. And so to consider him somehow a friend or someone we can do business with ignores the fact that he is an enemy.
Yeah, this is great. They are canceling Russia so hard. It's fantastic. And there's this, they didn't quite get to it in this next clip, but there was a kind of a semi-trending meme out there that Putin has a terminal brain tumor. And he's decided.
By the way, I've gotten into conversations
with libtards. Yes, go ahead.
Messaging and elsewhere, and the idea it goes like this: well, Putin's smart; he's a really smart guy, but. And everything he does is strategic, and he's good, and he's like a chess player where we, the old chess, we play checkers.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems as if he's gone nuts.
Yes.
And it's obvious that he's got a tumor. And people are talking about he's got a tumor. He's got a tumor. And
it's a serious thing, right? It's a serious. People are taking this seriously out there.
Everybody.
Oh. Or is that only in the Berkeley area?
No, I'm talking about international. We're talking. This is not a local phenomenon. So in Berkeley, we're still worried about masks.
So Nora slides the question in, but Mitt doesn't really take it all the way home. But at least it's taken kind of, the mental issue is taken, is presented.
And what about Vladimir Putin's mental state? He looks increasingly isolated.
I actually think Romney wasn't read in on this thing. He could have run with it easily.
What do you know?
I don't think that anybody can really assess what's going on in the mind of Vladimir Putin right now. The huge table with him sitting at one end is like Dr. Strangelove. He is not listening, apparently, to people who have contrary points of view. I don't know that that's something which suggests a mental imbalance or whether it's just a recognition that this is a dictator, that he's intent on conquest.
Conquest, that's right.
The other thing, part of the same meme is that he's not listening to anybody, and this comes up a lot. his generals are scared of him.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
My goodness, the Smith-Mundt. I'm glad we got rid of that stupid Smith-Mundt Act. It would be so boring if they couldn't do all this. This is great. All right, last one. And this is, this is kind of jumping the gun a little bit ahead of talking about sanctions, but I'll just throw it in here.
Ukrainians have been pleading for a no-fly zone. Is that something you would support?
I would love there to be a humanitarian corridor, a no-fly zone, if you will, that could be negotiated that would allow women and children from Ukraine to be able to escape if they want to do so. It would hopefully be something done by the United Nations or by NATO or even by us, but we don't want to find ourselves in a position where we're in direct conflict with Russians. The consequence of that could be too severe.
You know that Romney's kid or his nephew had business with Hunter Biden in Ukraine.
Yes, one of the Romneys is involved.
Yeah,
in
maybe it was his
Biden
kid.
nonsense.
Yeah, I think it was his kid. So he's got to tread lightly. So we've had CBS, ABC, CNN got a very different briefing.
CNN Chief International Anchor Christiane Amanpour joining us now. So,
and of course you bring in the international CNN. That's how you know that this is coming straight from the elite messaging system of Days of Lore.
Christiane, you spoke with Ukraine's foreign minister yesterday. What did he tell you? Where is he at in this moment?
Well, look, reached him in his, we describe it as a bunker, an undisclosed location, but nonetheless in Kyiv, in Ukraine, to talk to him about how he saw this.
Yes.
Hey, hold on.
Yes, go ahead.
Mark Levin, the great one, he broadcast from a bunker in an undisclosed location. This is exactly the way he starts his podcast or his radio show off.
Yeah.
From from a bunker in an undisclosed location. So now they're taking that little ditty and they gave it to this idiot to just.
Well, what's even funnier about it is you see the shot, and it's a shot of him, and it's cropped really tight on his head, and you see kind of a gray wall behind him, and it has very much of a bunker feel to it. I look at The Guardian this morning. There's the same background, but he's got a desk, a chair, a flag next to him and everything. It looked nothing like a bunker. So that was complete manipulation of the image. Complete. And why do I sound surprised?
Well, look, reached him in his, we describe it as a bunker, an undisclosed location, but nonetheless in Kyiv, in Ukraine, to talk to him about how he saw this playing out.
How
and
do you
of course,
know?
As the increased targeting of civilians was taking place. And what he said was actually very interesting, because he said he had spoken to the Chinese foreign minister, his counterpart. And that's really important, because the Chinese, you remember the famous pictures at the beginning of the Olympics when Presidents Xi and Putin basically declared a no-holds-barred, anything-goes friendship. Well, now the Chinese have actually switched since this invasion and since the targeting of civilians, and have even mentioned civilians and their worry about civilians, and have called on, that's a big concern, and they have offered to help in any kind of de-escalation. This is what the Ukrainian Foreign Minister Kuleba told me.
He assured me that China is not interested in this war and is ready to seek peaceful solution of this conflict through diplomacy. So I appealed to the Chinese foreign minister and also to the Indian foreign minister to take advantage of their leverage on Putin, of their relations with Russia, and urge Putin to stop this war immediately.
So again, very important, because China obviously has a huge leverage and a huge intricate relationship with Putin himself. So does India. And also William Cohen, the former U.S. Defense Secretary, said Israel could play an important role in this as well. So in other words, get the countries who still might have some kind of in or influence with Putin to do something about it. And Kuleba is also, again, calling on the UN to strip Russia of its UN Security Council seat, saying that it just inherited the old USSR seat and nobody voted for it, and that was in 91-92.
Okay. Your first impression?
Well, this is another little aspect. I don't have clips on this either. But another little aspect of all this is somehow getting Russia kicked out of the UN.
Yep. And maybe having the UN take over.
Which makes it like, wait a minute. This is really a new world, or this is a scam at this point. because the United Nations is supposed to be all the nations, and Russia's always been on the Security Council. Yeah, okay, it's been the Soviet the SSR, because that's the way they couch it was always Russia.
Yeah.
And so now they're trying to kick him off because they're voting against the way we want it. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And so now
I have some clips.
Okay, I was just going to do 2 more quickies on the propaganda.
Go.
The first one is a Ukrainian journalist who confronted Prime Minister Boris Johnson in the UK. Of course, the UK started all of this off with their reporting, which was picked up immediately by the news sources in America. And this, what is her name here? Daria Kalenuk. She is, in fact, a World Economic Forum Young Global Leader. So you need to know that as she confronts the prime minister and is basically, it seems like she's an agent provocateur because she's not an accredited journalist. And how she got in the room, they're not quite sure, but here she was.
Because you are afraid. Because NATO is not willing to defend. Because NATO is afraid of World War III, but it is already started. And these are Ukrainian children who are there taking the hit. You are talking about more sanctions, Prime Minister, but Roman Abramovich is not sanctioned. He's in London. His children are not in the bombardments. His children are there in London.
Can you understand any of this?
Nope, I can't hear a word she says.
Okay, that's what I was afraid of. Now, what she's saying is Putin's kids live in the Netherlands. Abramovich lives here in London. All these oligarchs, they're all here. NATO needs to step in. This is not enough. How can you let them reside here? So she was pumping up the let's go after the oligarchs, which we'll have to talk about.